Lonesome Larry was born in Redfish Lake in the Sawtooth Valley, and he, like other salmon smolts, grew to be, little fish there, and then they get washed out on the spring flows when the snow melts, and they get washed down the river and out to the ocean. But a lot of them don't make it anymore because the river doesn't work the way the river used to work. And there's, between Redfish Lake and the ocean, there's 8 dams that the baby salmon have to get through. So first he had to survive as a smolt getting out to the ocean. That's how most of them die. And then he would have been out in the ocean for about 3 years, swimming around, getting bigger. And then he had to come back because they come back to where they were born to spawn and die. And that's really important because salmon bring all those nutrients from the ocean. So he had to go over 8 dams up the fish ladders, and he was the only one to return to Redfish Lake that year. None of the others made it. He was caught by Fish and Game, and then they cryogenically froze his milt so that they could fertilize future generations of salmon. And so yeah, about 10% I think is what they say is related to Lonesome Larry, like direct descendants.
I took Idaho Natural History from Dr. Jensen, and that I found a really interesting class, and we talked quite a bit about salmon in that, and I don't know, that got me pretty interested. And then just talking with Annie last year and working with her and learning more about them, and the more I learned, the more I realized how important they were. Before I just thought it was another fish. My grandpa would talk about how they used to come up by our house in the river before they put the dams in, and it was just, to me, it was the fish weren't coming back because of the dams, and it wasn't that big of a deal. And then I learned that they were a keystone species and how they affect the whole ecosystem. And that's when I realized how important they really were and that it was a really worthy cause.
They hope to raise awareness about sockeye salmon in Idaho. They've been endangered for 20 years. Well, they've been on the endangered species list for 20 years. And they're not really, they haven't come very far from where they were. And when something's a problem for that long, people tend to forget about it. So it's kind of, the idea is to keep it fresh, keep people caring about the issue.
Well, I basically got involved through Annie, and she had interned for them last year. And so through the winter, this being Larry's 20th anniversary, they decided they wanted a big campaign to actually send Larry all over the place. And since Annie had already worn the Larry suit, they basically created the job kind of with her in mind. And then the more they got to thinking about it, they couldn't be sending one person off all over the state by themselves. They liked that I was from Idaho and I've already traveled around most of the states with my family growing up. So they liked that aspect of it, and I come from a ranching family. So that's kind of an area. One of the dams that we talk about a lot does provide some irrigation. And so having that background as a rancher and being able to communicate with people from both sides of it, they really liked that aspect that I could bring.
Our first trip was to the Weezer Fiddle Festival, and I rode a mechanical bull in the suit at that, and we got our picture taken with some of the fiddlers, who Joe actually knew because he's from Midvale, and they're from that area. That was really fun, and then we went to McCall and joined a big beach volleyball team, got our picture taken with them. I was in the Main Street Mile mascot race in downtown Boise. So I raced all the other mascots. I didn't come in last, but I certainly didn't come in first. A cow beat everybody.
We went down through Pocatello and did a radio interview, and went to Idaho Falls, did a farmer's market there, and then worked our way back up through Mackey, which there's a beautiful campground there, and it's just, I think I've learned a lot more about salmon from being here and reading about Lonesome Larry and reading books about the salmon. So I think that's something I can take into class and have a perspective from having traveled all over Idaho and done this.
I've learned to write in a style, a certain style for my employer, because I do a lot of writing at college, but learning to write the way your employer wants you to write, it's something you kind of have to have a little experience just actually doing it, I think, because everybody's different. I've definitely had to become more comfortable approaching people and talking about things, especially finding the people who are going to be receptive you know, and finding a way to approach the subject, be friendly, you know, and connect